Hello, happy summer. It is just after the summer solstice and monsoon is starting to come finally. You can see the clouds behind me. Monsoon is such a beautiful season because the clouds come every afternoon. It rains and nourishes everything and it cools everything off and then clears up later that night, and then the next morning it's clear and beautiful and starts over again. So I wanted to share with you about a talk that I went to the other night. So Santa Fe is such a great place to live because we have Los Alamos National Labs up in Los Alamos, just to the west of us here, and then we have Sandia Labs. We've got UNM. There's just a very large academic community, scientists all around. We have the Santa Fe Institute, and just a lot of independent thinkers and critical thinkers and really, really smart people. It's great to be in a community like this. Anyway, the Santa Fe Institute, shout out to the Santa Fe Institute, had a lecture the other night at the Lensic Theater, and the lecture was The Beautiful Engineering of Us. I can't remember the subtitle. It was something like Connection and Neurons and Gathering or something like that. And the lecture was facilitated by a Dartmouth professor, Talia Wheatley, who did this amazing lecture. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about it. So, neuroscientist, of course, and what they did was a lot of scans around how brains communicate. So she noted that there have been a lot of research done on brains, on a brain, right? Singular brains, when communication happens, what parts of the brain light up, what neurons connect, things like that. But there hadn't been any real research done on what happens when several brains get together and how they interconnect. And so she and her fellow scientist set about to do these brain experiments and scans to see what happens when people connect and are in communication, in conversation, and what happens in that process. And it was one of those sort of weird science nights where the science gets weird, right? And what they found, just to way oversimplify it, was that at some point when people are in communication and they're sharing ideas and they start to join in those ideas, the activation of the brains, of course, lights up, right? Of course it does. But then what they started to find was that the brain waves started to entrain with each other to the point where it was hard to tell whose brain was whose, especially, and very much especially, if you're having a conversation with a friend. And the closer and safer the friendship, the more entrained the brain waves would become. So that in effect, one mind, right? One mind was being created. And what they also noticed was how much this one mind phenomenon had other other attributes that showed how much we benefit from this one mind phenomenon. We benefit physiologically. And what she said was that, you know how when we're hungry, that feeling of hunger prompts us to eat, and then we eat a meal. And she said, you know, we're biologically hardwired to need close interpersonal connection through conversation, to the point where if we don't have it, we start to get sick. And what is the signal when we are, air quotes, hungry for, what are the, you know, what's the signal when we're signaled that we're hungry for connection? Loneliness. Loneliness is the connection signal that we need to have a meal. We need to have a connection meal. And so if we use loneliness as a prompt, then a prompt to reach out to somebody, to pick up the phone, to have a conversation with somebody, then we address that hunger, right? So what was interesting is then they took this, and then there was this piece about like, well, what constitutes connection, conversation? And through the research they did, they just found that there are all these signals we give that feel like real connection, that then light up the brains, that then create the brains to be entrained. And that has to do with signals like leaning in and filling up some of the gap, like when somebody talks, the next person says, uh-huh, uh-huh. And the fewer the gaps, in other words, the quicker I can respond by going, uh-huh, yeah. The fewer the gaps, the more active the brain, the more connected the brain, right? And interestingly, eye contact interrupted a little bit that connection. It doesn't create the connection, it interrupted it, but it's all part of the almost musical interplay where there's a moment of interruption and but through eye contact, but then it fills back in again with someone nodding or someone saying, uh-huh, yeah. And all of this is a very complex dance of connection. I find that interesting. Anyway, so then she's talking about, sorry, I don't have my stick today, but I just had to share this stuff. She starts sharing about, well, what about social media and technology? And that does not light up the brain. So if you're texting with somebody, the opportunity for the brain to feel connected with another is very minimal, and there is no brain entrainment, or very little, right? And then AI is even worse. And she compared AI to a Twinkie. And I love this metaphor. She says, if you're hungry and you grab a Twinkie, at first you might feel satiated, but you're not getting the nourishment. So it tricks your body into thinking you've eaten because you don't feel hungry anymore, but you haven't really eaten. And the AI works in exactly the same way. It is, it's a Twinkie for the brain. So when we partner with AI to problem solve, or, as a partner, or to think things through, that part of the brain that would light up in an interaction like that with a real person, a real brain, doesn't light up. But we do, like with the Twinkie, get satiated. So if we're lonely and we reach for connection and we reach for a text, an email, television, social media, or at the worst, AI, we get the fix. We feel satiated for a minute, but we're not. And a very real part of our biology is not attended to, a real biological imperative. And she had a lot of concerns about AI for this reason, and because of how much we really need this interconnectivity of our brains, our shared brains, to have the experience of one mind. And so it's had me thinking, right? She really suggests that we minimize how much we use the electronics as a means to connect, because actually our brains cannot be fooled. Our brains are not fooled. We may feel like we're attending to something that's relational and interpersonal, but we're not. And she encourages us to do things like game nights, right? Have game nights with friends, and pick up the phone for just 10 minutes to talk to your elderly mother, even if she has dementia and you're talking about the same thing you've always talked about. It doesn't matter. It's that brain-to-brain connectivity that matters. And, gatherings, potlucks, phone calls are helpful. They're not as great as in person, but at least you get that cadence of the, yes, I know what you're saying. And it's a real person on the other side, right? So once again, we are learning how important it is to connect, and to connect with real brains. And I'm thinking too about trans species, me connecting with my dogs, my cats, my horses, my donkeys, and allowing that connectivity as well. So yeah, have those conversations. Reach out and hold somebody's hand, and be willing to just be in the messiness of human to human conversations. All right. Have a great day.